You're listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast with Angela Henderson, episode 127. Hey there, you're listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast. My name is Angela Henderson, and on this show, we talk about improving your business, life, or both by having amazing and rich conversations with brilliant guests who will inspire you and who will give you tips and tricks to help you grow both in life and in business. Well, hey there, and welcome back to another awesome episode of the Business and Life Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ange, from Angela Henderson Consulting, where I'm an international award-winning business consultant and coach who has helped thousands of amazing women business owners get all the pieces in place to have consistent 5-figure months and then on to 6- and 7-figure years without burning out in the process. I'm so excited for today's episode. Really excited. Why? Because I'm bringing on one of my one-on-one clients today, Tracy, and we're going to be sharing with you how we created a $27 offer and turned it into over $718,000 in less than 4 months. And we're going deep, really deep. We're going to share with you how much we exactly spent on Facebook ads, what the profit was, how we mapped out this offer. I'm also going to explain to you what a slow funnel offer is. And also she's going to share what it's been like to work with me as her business consultant and how I helped her hit not only $718,000 off of a $27 product this year, but also help her have her first ever 7-figure year. It is going to be an epic and real and amazing episode. But before we jump into this amazing episode, I just want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by my mastermind, the Action Takers Mastermind for Women in Business. Applications are now open for 20 women in business to join me on my 12-month online and in-person experience designed to get your business to the next level, whatever that looks like for you. The Action Takers Mastermind helps business owners like you get clarity on what and where to put your focus on. You're also going to get genuine information on what's possible, what works, and what's a waste of time. I'm also going to be able to help give you feedback on your ideas, your skills, etc. We're going to look at different perspectives and those talents and those skills that need to marry that up. You're also going to be able to have opportunity to really meet some other amazing women in business within the mastermind, introductions to new clients, up leveling those referral pathways. Remember, your network equals your net worth. You're going to be able to access to amazing community who understand you and care about what you do. Not to mention, during the 12 months, you'll get strategy one-on-one sessions with me, emergency calls with me when you need help ASAP, hot seat calls each month, implementation and co-working sessions each month, 12-month access to a private VIP community, access to other mentors, because not only will you learn from me, but you'll have access to 11 plus other mentors in specific zones of genius to help move your business forward, and a one-day live event on the Gold Coast. And another, so that's 2 live events for the year. That is, again, if COVID stays away. If not, those events will be online. Sound like my 12-month Action Takers Mastermind might be what you need to get your business to the next level? Then I strongly encourage you to head to angelahenderson.com.au, click on the mastermind button and apply today. From there, we'll hop on a discovery call to make sure we're the right fit, and we'll get ready to end 2020 with a bang and make 2021 yours to shine. Now, let's get into this amazing episode. Welcome to the show, Trace.
Hey, Ange. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm super excited to have you here. But I mean, you have had an absolutely amazing year. But even more special is tell us a little bit about what arrived this last week.
So 1 week ago at 5:30 in the morning, our precious little granddaughter arrived into this world, Nora Luce, and she's amazing. And I'm here with my daughter and her husband and the baby now for a couple of weeks. So we're all very happy.
Oh my goodness. I mean, let's be honest, COVID has been one of those years where we're just like, come on, COVID, do you know what I mean? Give us something. And then I saw those beautiful pictures. I was like, yay, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're seeing a lot more happiness in feeds. And I mean, obviously, you can't predict when the pregnancy's coming, but what I'm saying is, like, there's a little bit more. I'm feeling like that the positivity is coming back into the feed a little bit. So yeah, congratulations on that birth of that beautiful little soul. And what a, first grandchild. So super fun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're all super happy.
And now, I mean, listen, you've actually, like I said, had a pretty epic year despite COVID. Let's not lie about it. And we've both talked about being able to still celebrate these wins even when others might not be celebrating, but it's still okay to celebrate, right? And we've had to work through that a little bit, going, oh, what will people think? Or, are we being insensitive? But today I want to really celebrate, because you have kicked some serious ass this year. And I'm really excited to not like talk about a few things we've done, but more importantly about this $27 offer, because so often, Trace, the gurus out there and Facebook ads are telling us high ticket offers, you need high ticket offers, or you need to be charging this. And it's like, hold on a minute. No, we get to test as business owners what we do and what we don't do. And we surely have tested this amazing $27 offer, which has turned into, $700,000 plus in less than 4 months. So, but before we jump into how that's all happened, I always like to ask a fun question to my guests, and so that they just get a chance to know you a little bit more, Tracy. And my fun question to you is this: I know that you have a variety of art retreats around the world, and they are amazing. I watched, in awe every time you go to another exotic place. But one of the things that I know you love doing is singing. But I also know that you and the crew on your retreats like to do a little bit of karaoke. So my question to you is, what is your all-time favorite song to sing?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I know because you two have just been getting into singing a little bit more within the house, and I see you do some things on Instagram, and it's really, really cool. I mean, just to be able to shift that energy and pick up the mic. So cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Now that we can pretty much, who wouldn't love to be sipping margaritas at this stage, singing and dancing the day away? No. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, Trace. So let's be honest. But share with the audience a little bit about your business journey. Where did it start and where are you now?
Yeah, so I basically kind of discovered my own creativity when I was 33. So that's 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. And up until that time, I really thought that creativity, art especially, like painting, drawing, I really thought it was something that some people were born with and other people were not, right? Mm-hmm. And my brother seemed to have that gift. And so growing up, well, he did, he definitely had a gift. And growing up, so I was the academic one and he was the arty one. And that was kind of like the labels we were given. Mm-hmm. But I always wanted to, I was so intrigued by other people's paintings, and just, it felt like a magic thing to me. But I think when I was about 11, I tried to do a sketch with my brother. And of course, mine was crap because I'd never tried before. And I realized later on, he'd spent the first 7 years of his life just drawing and copying and practicing. And so that's, that's kind of where it begins. But it wasn't until I was 33 that I actually saw a little ad in the paper for an art class and decided to start going along one morning a week. Uh-huh. And within about 3 weeks, my mind was just blown because I just had this epiphany that this was actually something that was a learnable skill. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, just a magic gift that some people got and others didn't. And so it kind of cracked everything wide open for me. And it also made me I felt like I was walking through the world with my eyes more wide open, with a greater sense of confidence. And all of that was coming from the fact that I could paint these little paintings or draw these drawings. And I started exhibiting pretty much straight away. And the other thing I started doing straight away was every Wednesday afternoon when I would come home from that art class, I would gather the neighborhood kids and my 2 girls who were little, mm-hmm. and we would do an afternoon art class, and I would kind of rehash what I'd learned and put it into kids speak, and started these art classes. So that went on for 12 years, after school art classes. It got pretty big, but it was always I was doing 3 afternoons a week. I tried to franchise, but that didn't work out. There didn't really seem to be anywhere else for me to take it beyond, $12 a head for an hour lesson in the afternoons. Mm-hmm. And then at some point I started to notice that there were women out there, and I'm sure there are men out there as well, but I just noticed these particular women who were out there teaching retreats and workshops around the world. And I was like, oh my God, that's a thing that people do.
Yeah.
Right? Really? They're just sitting on the south coast of Italy and, they've got their Aperol spritz in their hand and their paintbrush in the other. And I'm like, I ran into Marco and I'm like, look at this. It was in a book that I was reading. This is a thing that people do. So I kind of planted a seed in my head that one day when the girls were older, that this would be something we could pursue because we both love traveling, and it would kind of, it felt like it would tie everything together. So fast forward 2012, I actually did take off when the girls were 15 and 18. I took off for 3 months by myself across the USA on a 3-month teaching tour, 11 workshops all sold out across the country. Had never traveled by myself before. I was 47, and that was the beginning. And so since then, I've taught over 100 workshops and retreats in person, and thousands and thousands of students in online classes, all based around painting, but also there's a kind of a deeper sense of creativity giving you more confidence and clarity to move through the world.
And of all of the retreats, what is your favorite location to paint at?
That's a really hard one because there's been so many, but I think two that really stand out in my mind. One was Ischia in Italy, which is like this island off Naples, where we were in a hotel. The beach was right in front of us. We were painting outside just under a shelter. So beach in front, and to our left, just steps away, were 3 thermal pools because it's a volcanic island. And so we could just paint, jump in the ocean, jump in the thermal pool, order the Aperol Spritz.
Oh my goodness, hello luxury, yeah.
So that was amazing. And then Mexico as well has always been my favorite. Oaxaca in Mexico is an incredible city to find your creativity.
And now all we need is for these damn airlines and countries to open, because I think all of us, I mean, we were talking about this before we hit record. I was like, I'm flying up to Cairns in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, listen, I'm very grateful to be able to fly up there, but I'm like, it isn't no Bali, right? It's not Mexico. There's something about when you get into another country, the smells and the people and the language and the food, like everything just, takes you to this magical place, right? So I think many people are hanging for this to happen again. It will come. It will come.
Absolutely.
So I guess one of the things that I want to emphasize that what we're about to talk about, and I'm going to kind of talk about, I'll probably recap at the end though, is that you've been doing this for 22 years. And when you posted in my side of my Facebook group, thank you, Ange, for your help, because of you doing this and helping me, I think it was about paying off your mortgage.
Yep.
And then a lot of people start messaging me going, how can I work with you? I want to do what Tracy did. And I was like, hold on a minute. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can help with your strategy and I can help move your business forward, but it's important to understand that anyone, like what we're about to share with this $27 offer, and how not only we've hit the 700,000 from that, but you've now hit the million for this year, and we still have a couple months left, is that you've been working 22 years of finding yourself, finding your niche, creating your audience, and nurturing. You are one of the best examples when it comes to nurturing an audience. You continue to show up. You're consistent, but your kindness can be felt through your Instagram posts, through your messaging and everything. And so, maybe there'll be a few of you out there that could go and replicate this, but I'm going to say that it would be very hard, all right, to replicate this, because you just don't go from 0 to 1 million overnight, even though you may see Facebook posts and people on planes and their laptops on the beach. I'm here to tell you, it typically doesn't work like that. So would you like to add anything to that? Because I think it's important that we set this tone, because I don't want anyone, I'm here, we're going to be going through your numbers. We're going to be super transparent about how much we spend on ads and things like that. But I don't want everyone to think this is a quick fix, because this has not been a quick fix for you, Trace.
Absolutely. And I get a lot of DMs around the same thing, where people are just like, I would really love to do what you do. Can you just give me, your number one tip as to how to get to where you got to? I'm like, there is no number one tip. Like it's a lifetime of trying things, making mistakes. Like I've had so many entrepreneurial, small businesses. When my first daughter was 1, I started Mexican cooking classes in our house. I was a Tupperware lady when I was 21 and became a manager in the US. Like I've had so many different things that I've done that haven't worked out. But I think what's important is to kind of realize that from every single thing that doesn't work out in your life, especially business-wise, there's something to learn from it. And 100%. I can look back and I could write a book on what I have learned from each different endeavor that didn't work out, and how those things that I've learned have actually helped me to be successful with this business.
Yep. And what I think is a lot of people like, oh, I failed in this and oh, I failed in
Mm,
this. I really like to reframe that from
mm,
those failures are the lessons. They're the
yeah.
lessons that we need to go move us forward. And if
Yeah.
you keep getting stuck and
Mm,
stuck, you haven't
mhm.
learned the lesson.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, there's a few things that even in my time, do you know what I mean? Like the way I hire people,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
then the way I fire people also, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's COVID. I don't want to upset them. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I'm like, oh, hell no. Do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
one of the things, again, I talked about it a little bit last year, but I've got it even tighter this year, is like
Mhm.
I hire fast and I fire faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because what was happening is it was stunting with the growth because I was
Yeah.
taking on their shit that isn't my shit. But it's like what happened was I wasn't learning the lesson. So I kept hiring people and then
Yeah.
I'd always like they weren't doing what they do. And then and I'm like, so that was my own fault. And finally I learned the lesson and had the aha moment.
Yeah.
So if you're out there listening and just kind of shaking your head and you keep going, why does this keep happening? Why does
Yeah.
this keep happening? That's my
Yeah.
first indicator to the clients that I work with is you haven't learned the lesson yet. Go and
Exactly.
unpack what that lesson is that you need to learn to get you to the next level.
Yeah. 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 And I absolutely know that the two biggest lessons that, I kept getting stuck in. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, but one was the whole idea of having like an organizational structure, like the underlying structure of the business, because I've always been a person that just wings it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I come up with ideas like that and I just fly by the seat of my pants and jump in before I know what I really, whether I can do it or not. And that can kind of work for a while. But as you get to a certain level, things start to just implode or fall apart because you don't have the systems in place. And so that was probably one of the biggest things that I wasn't learning over and over again in those other businesses and that you've really helped me with. And I can't think of the other one right now because it's gone on my head. What was the
We
other
put
one?
you on the spot. There'll be lots that we're going to cover. But absolutely right. And I know like even your daughter is kind of like your go-to, your 2IC in your business, Cece, who's an amazing human being. And she'd be like, Ma, you can't keep doing this. Remember what Anne said? Ma, no, like, did you run this by Anne, Jeremy? And we'd be like, no. And you're like, okay. And so, but again, I agree with you is I see it often, whether or not you call yourself a creative entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur in general, we are where we are because we are able to come up with amazing ideas. And typically we're not afraid to test them like that. So I do think we need that character. But as you said, it's when that character starts to overtake everything else, right? And then it's like it stunts the growth, right? And there's a beautiful book that I read this year called The E-Myth. And it talks about there's three main types of characters within your business. You've got the entrepreneur, you have the manager, and you have the technician. And technically, all three of those people, what we all do them all those roles at the very beginning. But as our business starts to grow, as we get to be that entrepreneur and come up with the ideas and be that visionary. But then the manager, in your example, Cece, then gets to take those ideas, and then we've got someone else, or in this example, Cece still does it, but we execute those ideas, right?
Absolutely.
But again, we've needed to understand it and unpack that to get us to where we are.
Yes, and that was the second thing. That was the second thing, is that I don't have to do everything myself. And that, what I was doing for all of those years was like, I need to be in control of everything and do every single facet of the business. And that doesn't work either. So
it doesn't, because you can't your zone of genius. And another thing we know is that you then aren't getting into the studio. And the studio is what lights you up, fills your cup, right? And then what happens is, and I see this with a lot of the artists that I work with, is that they start to get crabby, they start to get cranky, and they start going, why is it? And then my question always is, when was the last time you were in studio? And they're like, it's been weeks. And I'm like, go back to studio. Do you know what I mean? Find your craft again.
You become resentful of your business, and that's not a good way to be.
And whether or not it's the studio, or whether or not for some people it's Pilates, or whether or not it's some people, whatever that is, right? But you can't let that cup go on empty, because it will start to have an unbalance in that. Now, today we're not only going to talk about how we created together the $27 offer and turned that into 700,000 plus. We're also going to be sharing with the audience what it's been like for you to work with me in the role of a business consultant. So can you start off with also sharing with the listeners how you decided to start working with me, and what were some of the challenges? You've mentioned some of them that you were facing at the time before you decided to work with me as a consultant.
Yeah, so I first met you, Ange, at the Heart-Centered Business Conference in Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in February, was it last year? 2019?
Yes, because then you hired me at the end of
At the
2019.
end of last
We've
year,
gone
yeah.
into this, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it took me, that's how long it took me, like from meeting you, from hearing you, from thinking, oh, I'd really like to work with her, because I had been ruminating about, do I need a coach? No, I don't need a coach. I've done it by myself this far, like all of those things that go through my head. And so it took another 7 months before I actually made, okay, I'll have this 15-minute kind of free call with you or whatever it was. Like I've got nothing to lose. I can say no. And so all of that was kind of going on in my head. But what was really coming up for me was that a couple of things. I felt like I had done really well, and that I was kind of cruising along and averaging out the year with about 30,000 coming in revenue each month. But it wasn't consistent. There were some months that were 12 and some months that were 50 if we had a launch, that type of thing. And I kind of thought, well, what could I do to make this a little more consistent? Also, we have been for like 20 years or so, helping a school in Mexico and now helping in Cambodia as well. And so we really wanted to find a way to be able to contribute more to those projects that we're already working with. So there were a lot of things kind of going on, and there was self-doubt. There was, I remember somebody saying to me when I kind of hit a peak in 2014, and I had my first e-course and I had my book come out, and that was a massive year, not as big as this year, but I remember somebody saying, oh, you probably get about a 4-year stint at being, whatever, like being not famous, but being the most visible person in this particular niche.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did start to notice up and coming new teachers, that people were excited about these new classes, and I felt a little bit like people were moving away from me. It was like that starting to like feel that sense of scarcity, or like, oh, maybe I won't be the flavor of the month anymore, whatever.
Yeah.
and I really have worked a lot on abundance mindset for many, many years, but I could feel it. I was aware of it. I'm like, oh, we need to like nip this in the bud, like do something about this. So that was all of the things that were going on when I contacted you, and you were immediately just so, it felt like you were so sure and certain that, this actually wasn't a problem, and that there was strategies and things we could do to, get through it, to shift my mindset, to, achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve. Actually, I didn't even have goals. You were the one that kind of said to me, well, what financial goal would you like to set this year? So there were a lot of things that you helped me put in place right in the beginning that I would never have done for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know I like that you touched about it, because when you first came to me, there was a lot of fear there. You may not have named it fear, but it was like, I was like, oh yeah, because like we did the discovery call, and then you came back and you had like a bunch of questions, right?
Yeah.
And I said, these are all very great questions, Trace. I said, but this is fear trying to creep in. It's fear is trying to get you. And there's a little bit of nervousness too, because you never worked with a consultant, and you had to like take the leap, right? Because you're like, this is, I've got to, where's my ROI? How am I going to see the ROI? And I was like, listen, I was like, at the beginning, we're going to be looking at the foundations, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But and I was like, so we might have to go backwards a little bit before we go forwards. And you were kind of like, oh, okay, I'm not too sure about how I feel about that. And so again, because a lot of people think that working with a consultant means like, I'm going to sprinkle rainbows and unicorns out of everyone's asses, right? But I'm like, no, we still have to put the work in. Yeah. And sometimes, like you said, we've either have to slow down to speed up, or we've got to go backwards to go forward, right?
Yes.
It's like a dance. It's like the two-stepping, 2 steps, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, right? And people, but because you never worked with a consultant, like I said, I understood it. And I see this regularly with people, right? There's that hesitation. What made you though finally take the jump or make the shift to go, you know what, I'm going to invest, I'm going to back myself, and I'm going to hire you, Ange? What was that kind of like, aha, you're like, I'm in, we're good, we're doing it?
Yeah, I think there was something very intuitive about this is something that I need to do. And I also I have this, this kind of thing about money because I'd never really invested any money in my business before. I'd never invested any money with ads. I think I'd thrown a few, dollars here and there at Instagram ads without even knowing what I was doing. But for me to actually spend a monthly amount on a consultant was like, oh God, yeah, as you're saying, where is the return? How can I justify that and how can I see it coming back in? And so I have this funny thing that I do where I paint these little owls that sell like hotcakes whenever
they're awesome.
Thank you.
I have one. I'm looking at it as we record, yes.
So they're wise and wonky owls. And I know that every time I post those, I can sell them. But I don't get out and paint very often. So Marco and I had this thing that we did in our heads where we started to talk in owl currency. So I kind of said to myself, well, if I start to work with Ange, that's really only, I think it would have been 4 owls per month. And I thought I can get out there and work for a half a day and paint 4 owls and pay Ange. So it just helped me to kind of shift it into that.
Sounds like weird, owl currency.
Owl currency,
I like it.
Yeah. So
how many owls do I need to sell?
Exactly. So that was kind of, the tipping factor. It's like I wanted to work with you, but the money thing was holding me back because I'd never invested that kind of monthly money before in my business. But then when I put it to myself that way, I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can do this and we'll see how it's going to work. We'll give it a try and we'll see what happens.
And I'm happy to say we definitely have a fucking return on investment, Trace. All right? We have a return. We have hit the $1 million in return on investment. So but then, like I said, we'll talk more about it, but when I got that text message of you screenshotting, we did it, and I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, though, is about foundations. So when anyone works with me, I work with one of the top plastic surgeons in Australia. I work with a bunch of people who think they got all their ducks in a row, right? But when anyone works with me, the first thing I do is go back to the foundations. I look at website, I look at messaging and sales funnels, because without these foundations, it's very hard to go to the growth and then to the scale stage. Now that you're on the other side of working with me, what can you say to those listening about the importance of getting the foundations laid correctly?
Oh, absolutely. That would have been a game changer for me if I had known this, say, 7 years ago when I first started doing the adult workshops and online classes. It could have saved so much overwhelm, stress, heartache, anxiety. What you've helped us to put in place has been one of the key factors in the phenomenal growth this year. Absolutely. And it just makes it it makes it so that you actually don't fall into that kind of pit of overwhelm, because things are just, they start to tick along and they just start to work because all the pieces are talking to each other. And it feels like a huge thing to do. Like we're still doing it. We're still revamping sales pages on some of my old classes. Like it's a work in progress. But we know what we're supposed to do. It's like a formula.
Exactly right. You're like, yeah. And because the thing is that you had never ran Facebook ads ever.
No.
Like pretty much as in like, yes, you boosted a few things, but you never run ads. And I was like, listen, until we get these foundations in place and all the things, all those pieces, I said, I don't want to be running ads for you, because you're going to be paying for juicy traffic, and we're going to get them back to these ecosystems, and they're not going to convert. So again, it's like we had to get the foundations, and Cece was working double time. You guys were all working double time to get it there. And then we laid it. And then I was like, all right, we're getting there. And so the foundations, like I said, now that we got the foundations taken care of, we created a challenge, right? And with your audience, which was at the beginning of the year. And I think you were in Fiji, or you were traveling, and we're like doing lives as you're in Fiji and presenting in this, which then led to your launch, which was fantastic. And by creating this launch strategy for the challenge, now I want to say the $27 is different to the challenge. All right, folks, but I just want to lay kind of a little bit of the story here is Trace had never ran ads before. She had never had a 6-figure launch before. Her foundations were a bit all over the place, but we got the foundation secure. We then put the challenge. You already had that ready to rock and roll. And I said, listen, we're going to need to test ads. If you want to grow, and I guess I'll take it one step further. We mapped out your goals, and you said, Ange, I want to hit 700K this year. I said, okay, what you're currently doing, we're just going to keep repeating that, because you can only get so many people into retreats. I said, we need to go to a bigger one-to-many model. So we're going to need to bring in ads. And you're like, how much do ads cost? And I said, well, I said, how long is a piece of string? And I said, for you, I said, I believe that we need to work with a particular person who's been in this space for a while, and that's Jody Milford, who's an amazing ad specialist from around, she lives here in the sunny coast in Australia. Yep. And he said, well, what does she cost? And I said, it's going to be a few thousand. For her only, you said? And I was like, yeah.
Gulp.
I know. And then you're like, but I'm also paying you. And I'm like, I know. I was like, Tracy was like, please trust me on this. And you're like, okay, I'm in. Yeah. And then
I was such a newbie because then I didn't realize that the ad spend was on top of, Jody's. And I'm like, oh God, there's more.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh my goodness, you're like Edge. And then I was like, trust me on this. I was like, trust the process. And you're like, okay. And I said, listen, we can always shut ads off. I said, if we get, it's too much cost per lead or whatever, I said, we can always stop. But I said, the thing with you, and this is one of the variables that I need people to understand is in this entire equation is you have a very loyal following. You've got a very juicy email list, right? Again, importance of building your list. You've got a great following on socials. So again, you had that in our favor. And I said, I believe this is going to work for us. And so from that challenge back in Jan, you then hit your first ever 6-figure launch. And you're like, Ange, it's not even like end of Feb. And we're doing good here. And I was like, yeah. And then we had, so we wrapped up that launch and then COVID hit us. Yeah. And I started to see the fear start to creep back in you. You're like, Ange, I got to cancel all of the retreats from around the world or not cancel. I have to postpone them around the world. Yes. And then you took a little bit of a break from me at that stage. And you said, Ange, just with COVID. And then it's funny, the owls come back, right? And you and I, before we wrapped up, I said, Trace, how many owls do you need to sell per month just to keep everything ticking along while we figure out COVID? Yeah. And you said, and we figured it out. And you said, we're great. And so you just started selling owls and we were cool. But then all of a sudden you came back and you're like, Ange, we're ready. We're good. We finished up. We tied up some more of it. And now we're, we're going to look at what else can we do. And I said, listen, let's look at your old content. I said, and let's look at a slow liquidating offer funnel, which it's technically an SOL is what people call it. It's a slow funnel. There's basically 3 parts to a slow, which is a front offer, an upsell, and an OTO, which is otherwise known as a one-time offer. And I said, can you share with the audience, like for me is I want you, because I was thinking, well, what can we do to your audience, right? Because COVID's hit. And so we're like, what could we offer them that's going to help with their creativity, keep their mind, do you know what I mean, in good spirit, et cetera, during this time? And you're like, listen, I think we've got a few things. So can you share with your audience what you put together or what we put together and what the price points were? Because you had a $27 front end offer and then explain the rest for us. Yeah.
And so, the $27 offer was actually initially like a small 5-day pop-up promo that we had at the front end of the January launch, the February launch. And so then it was just it was 5 great little videos. It was just kind of sitting on my computer. And I was like, well, I think I said to you, well, we can't really put a price on that because I actually offered it for free for 5 days. And you're like, yeah, we can. I'm like, well, how? People will be mad at me, And then you were like, well, they didn't get to download it last time. A lot of people probably didn't even get to do it in 5 days. Like people are going to jump on it. So I was like, okay, well, that was a mental shift. Okay, you can put a little price on something, that was previously just a little pop-up. So that kind of was there, 5 little videos to spark creativity, to help people not get stuck and, feel freedom and creative expression. And then we came up with some inspiration prompts that were digital, so we didn't have to mail anything out. People could download their own inspiration prompts, and that was the bump.
And how much was the bump?
It's $7, I believe.
Yep.
And then for $77, we have a one-time offer, which is one of my existing classes.
Again, all of these, I just cannot reemphasize enough. You do not need high ticket offers, right, in order to make this work. The other thing is that high ticket offers, but you also don't need to go and create new content. Right? Is you already had this content. So it wasn't about, I wasn't asking you to work harder because I was also very mindful at time of COVID people's morale was a little bit lower. People were uncertain. And because of that, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people were just functioning on this kind of bottom two realms, safety, security. So I was like, let's not do anything more. Let's test it. And the beautiful thing is when you create a slow funnel is you can see what pieces of the funnel are working and what aren't. And you can then take a piece out and replace it with another piece of content, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always can be a work in progress. So that's what we had is we had a $27 front offer. We had a $7 bump and a $77 one-time offer. Yeah. Now, I get a lot of people say, well, that's great. And you've hit $780,000 in less than, 18,000, less than 4 months. Mm-hmm. But what's the data behind it? And you've given me permission, and we've spoken with Jody, the ads manager. So we've got exact data. So we're not, these are the numbers. We spent $342,000. Now I want to back up. This is from June 16th when we started ads through to October 8th. So this won't air until I think mid-November. So for those of you guys that are, we're going to be very clear, June 16th through to October 8th. We spent $342,390 on ad spend. Our front offer brought in $540,179.51. Our bump brought in $47,298.24. Our one-time offer brought in $131,391.45 for a total sales of $718,869.20. All right. So if you just, again, and this isn't, if you just take off all of the ad spend expense and just come out, we were left working with a profit roughly of $376,479.20. Now, we would also need to go in and take a little bit off for what you paid for Jody, on top of that, what you paid for Cece's wage on top of that. But roughly, let's say, give or take, you still had $350,000 roughly worth of profit. Yeah. Right? Yep. So, I don't think anyone would be complaining about that profit margin over a 4-month period. That's pretty good. I also just want to break down that our front offer of that $27, we actually were able to help 14,174 people become more creative. Yes. That's pretty awesome. The bump we then sold on to 4,608 people, and then the OTO was 1,199 people took that offer up. But the bottom number, though, is everyone still had to buy that first $27 product, which means, again, we helped create and spark creativity and bring joy into people's lives to over 14,000 people. During a time of COVID, which is absolutely remarkable that they were given an opportunity to be able to access something during that time. So
it's fantastic. It's so good. And you don't see the emails that we receive and just the ripple effect that comes from that, people who haven't painted for 50 years or somebody who was told, that wanted to pursue it but was told when they were 15 that they were no good and so they never did it. Just people's lives are changing from a $27 offer. So it's incredible.
But not only are lives changing, and this is one of the things that we talk about, is about also creating the legacy. So not only are those people's lives changing from a place of art, but can you talk a little bit about, because one of our things that you and I talk often about is that it's okay to have more money than what we need. It's okay to make more money than family and friends. It's safe to make more money than family and friends. But it's just not about making more as in we can buy more properties or we can go on more trips or we can buy more cars. You also are very, very committed to giving back. And we know that the more wealth that you make, the more you can contribute back to these communities. So can you also share that by making this $27 product, how much you've also given back into those people in Cambodia and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. It's an important thing for me because one of the things that was always holding me back as far as taking the business to that next level was the idea of, what will you be seeing? How will you be seen if you are making lots of money? You become not one of the group anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's all of those fears around that being kind of cast out or, oh, she's rich now or whatever, all those silly things. But in reality, Marco and I were very kind of a bit bohemian and alternative. We've built our own mud brick house and we don't spend a lot of money, we like to use secondhand materials pre-loved things. We love to recycle, all of that. But in the background of everything, I remember many years ago when we first started working with the school in Mexico, we put on our vision board that we would like to send $100,000 to the school. And it's a school in a very poor area in Tijuana. Our friend Christine, who's an American, Stanford educated, highly intelligent woman, has devoted her life to this school of creativity, basically in a slum. And so we've been able to send little bits of money over all of these years. But, when this happened, it's like, wow, we really could start to send huge amounts and really, finance certain aspects of these schools. And then the other thing was that a couple of years ago, Cece and I went to Cambodia. Another friend was running a school of creativity there. And so when COVID hit Cambodia, I've since been twice, not during COVID, but before. When COVID hit, all of the families that were at these schools that we knew no longer had any work or money for food at all. Like, it's already a country that's so poverty-stricken. Mm-hmm. But now they're not even making their $7 a day to afford to buy rice. So basically what this last 4 months has allowed us to do, not just Marco and I, but our whole community, is to feed and sustain, I think we're up to about 500 families over 4 months. I haven't done the final figures, but we're somewhere around 40,000 kilos of rice that we've been able to buy and distribute to villages around Siem Reap. And then now what's happening is I have students who are reaching out to sponsor specific families, which is amazing. So that, to me, that sparks my joy, more than checking the numbers in the morning. I'd rather get an email from my friend who I've sponsored him with a duck farm, and he sends me daily updates on how many duck eggs he has, and that.
Oh my goodness,
he's so happy.
It's like, how can you not just but again, you're making the world a better place. And this is the thing, I say this over, is when you get wealth into the hands of women, you not only change your community locally, but you change the world. Mm-hmm. The data shows that, and I say this again repetitively, men are less likely to recontribute that wealth, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, yes, you've had the best year in business, but you're equally just going right back and contributing, right? Right back. And it's I see the photos of the families in Cambodia, because your friend sends those photos to you and you share it. And it's like, these families are beyond grateful, that, and it's rice. It's not like they're getting fruit and veggies and everything else, because they can't access, from what I understand, is it's not something that's an option. It's rice people. 4 months, that's what these families have had, because there's no tourism, no nothing. And it's because of you, again, you've been able to help 500 families still be here, which just is amazing. Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah.
And with hitting the million, I want to talk about, obviously from this tiny offer, not only did you meet your annual goal that we mapped out earlier, which was 700,000, combined it with your other offers and the owl paintings, et cetera. You've now hit over, I got the email or the screenshot, and we've done it. We've hit the million, and there was still a quarter of the year left. Yeah. You're able to pay your mortgage. Again, you're able to give back. But how did it feel to finally hit the million, to be I'm in the 7 figures?
Yeah, it just, it's one of those pinch me moments. It's happening, but it's wow, this is, and the other thing is too, you and I have talked before about energy, right? And money is just energy. It's just an exchange of energy. And if you're putting good stuff out and good stuff is coming back in, then you just keep on circulating it and moving it. Don't let it get stuck. And I remember years ago, because we struggled for a lot of years. And years ago, Marco and I would always say to each other, we wish if we just had 10,000 extra in the bank, we'd feel secure, if we weren't just paying the bills every month and we had that extra 10,000. And then this year, it quite quickly got to the point where we had an extra 100,000 in the bank. Mm-hmm. And when I looked at it, I said to him, there's actually just a zero. There's actually no difference, because there's a zero difference between the 10,000 and the 100,000. Mm-hmm. So as far as your perspective goes of what that is, it's nothing. It's just an energy. And I said to him, okay, well, now the million is just one more zero. So, right. Yeah. And it just flipped something in our minds to kind of go, well, this is possible and doable, and think how much more we can then contribute in the way that we're doing once we kind of hit that level. So it felt great, but it felt affirming. We celebrated.
You did. Hell yeah. I was like, cracking the champagne. I was like, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd all be together. I was like, one day it will happen. But I was like, it was like, it was a very, I was just so ecstatic for you. And again, 22 years, people, right? It might not take you to all listening of their 22 years, but again, this didn't happen overnight. Now, one of the things though, since hitting the million, is there's some other things that have come up. And I think this is important because every time we hit another revenue goal or another bucket or another goal, we still have to shift our mindset. Things have to shift. We have to start looking at perspective differently. I know a good friend of mine, Denise Duffield Thomas, we often talk about even, her, she hits 3-4 million plus per year. Her mindset's still always shifting, but what does that look like for you in regards to having to shift your mindset or understanding of wealth, or what people may have been like, what is that, a pyramid scheme? Like, what does that look like for you?
So it was funny because when we first started with the tiny offer, and Mark and I were so excited, and we did tell a few friends what was going on. We've tried to explain to them, and like really close friends. And I remember one friend did say, well, I don't understand. How can you make that much money from, what do you mean? What do you mean Facebook ads? What is this? Is this a pyramid scheme? And we're like, no, it's not a pyramid scheme. This is something that I've created that's helping people. And lots of people are buying it, like thousands of people are buying it. And they just didn't get it. So we actually, in that first month, after having a couple of conversations like that, decided that we wouldn't kind of just tell everybody what was going on. It wouldn't go into the nitty-gritty of it. We'd just say, business is great. Lots of people are looking for online classes right now, and we're doing fantastic. And so we kind of realized you had to like reel it back in a little bit and be selective about who you showed your excitement and the details to. I also, one of the other things that I had to really shift was my whole like need for everybody to like me. Because that was like part of having a close, strong following, a loyal following, is that, you've got your people around you who will do anything for you and, who love what you do and all of that. And putting myself out there with ads to thousands and thousands of people who have never heard of anything that I've done meant that, people were saying nasty things on the ads. And at first that was difficult. It was like, my dog can do better than that. Who you're not even art. People were saying horrible things. Some people were saying that's not abstract art, or you can't say abstract art is easy, all of those things. So at first I was reading every single message, and that wasn't very good for my headspace. And so we then worked out that Cece would take care of that, and then we've now hired somebody else in the US so that we're covering the time zones, so that we can either hide comments that are just abusive. You can just hide them.
I know that you've had a significant mindset with that, because when they first started coming, you would reach out to me, because when people work with me in a one-to-one capacity, they have my phone number, we're friends on Facebook, like it's a very high touch point. You'd be like, Ange, look at this, Ange, look at this, Ange, look at this. I was like, hold on, let's take a deep breath. And you haven't messaged me for ages. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, again, but it's like we work through it. We said, where is this coming from? Da, 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 da. And now you're just like, screw them. Do you know what I mean? I'm here. I'm changing lives. I'm helping people around the world. Like, and that's the thing is, when you start to grow more and more, there's jealousy that comes in with people, right? Or there's fear of their own stuff. I always say that's on them. That is their own shit, right? And people will do whatever they can to try and drag you down, right? So, these are the things that people, I just want to touch upon it, because it's like, yes, you can hit the million, but it doesn't mean that everything's still smooth sailing. You still have to work on the next round of your mindset for what's going to come next, etc. Now, I'd also just love to know, for you personally, what has been your favorite part working with me as your business consultant?
Yeah, I think just like having someone there, having you there to kind of run ideas by, whenever whenever anything kind of springs into my mind. But also you are very good at helping me to prioritize what I need to be working on and what I don't need to be working on. So that's, you're like my voice of reason, you know. So, yeah, that's a great idea, but let's just put that one aside for now because we're focusing on this, right?
Yeah.
Because I have that tendency to be really kind of, attracted to shiny things and, going off on different tangents.
Yep.
So yeah, you're kind of there to always kind of pull me into line in a loving way.
Loving, I do. It is loving people.
Yes, it is. Like just this is what we're focusing on now, and just knowing that I've got you there as that touch point whenever I need you is awesome. It's so good.
No, thank you for that. And again, Cece always cracks me up. She'll be like, "Ma, you need to speak with Ange." It's like, I'll get a message from Cece, "You're going to need to speak with Mom about this, Ange, because she's got another one," and we do. So no, I mean, that is the thing. Now, for those listeners, though, sitting on the fence, and because we're getting ready to end 2020 with a bang, and we're getting ready to make 2021 even better. But there'll be listeners sitting on the fence who've been wanting to work with me as a business consultant or coach, and they're like, "Ooh, I don't know. Again, what's the ROI? What is that?" Someone else that, what are some words of encouragement that you would give them?
I think as women, a lot of times we feel like, especially if you're starting out in a business, we don't actually feel like we're worthy of investing in ourselves, if that makes sense. Like somehow we think we've got to actually do all the work and, just like work our butts off without actually investing any money, and then hope that things will come back. But I think there needs to be a shift in that mindset that actually, all startups have to invest money to get going, right?
Right.
And so that kind of the feeling of that you are worthy of investing in your own business would be a huge thing that I would encourage women to do to get started. If you're just starting up, like working with someone like you, Angel, I think it would have saved me in the beginning, like hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of just going down the wrong direction or chasing my tail or all those things. Like it would have given me clarity a lot earlier. So I think, in the end, like just that kind of upfront investment to work with you, even to try it out for a few months, 6 months, to see how it goes, well worth it.
And again, my whole thing is I learned, in the last 10 years of being in business with both businesses is that when you pay attention.
Yes.
It's like you show up more, your confidence grows more, you open the emails, you do the work, right? It's like you're paying for it, right?
Yes.
Another thing that I have found personally, and I say this often on the podcast, is that the transformation occurs when the transaction takes place.
Yes. Yep.
And it might be a $10 transaction to go to a networking event. It could be, I now spend anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 a year on personal development, right? But the transformation occurs. Like it's just like, I don't know how to explain, but once you do it, you're like, oh man, why did I not do this earlier? Right. And so, it's just the transformation, but again, I think it's about believing in yourself and about trusting the process. And, it's not one-to-one isn't for everyone. Like, again, not everyone might be able to bootstrap, and pay for one-to-one. But again, we've got a variety of the ways that people can work with us to still meet the needs for where women are now. And my whole mission is to make sure that by 2025, I've worked with an additional 2,000 women to make sure they've got the tools, community, and resources they need to grow those businesses. And like I said, I want to have it in a variety of price points, which we do, because again, people need things in different ways, right? So So now for those listeners that are out there, though, I always wrap up with this final question, Trace. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started off in business?
Okay. Okay, so I definitely know that I can't do everything myself. That outsourcing is one of the most important things that you can do for your business. And what else? And I think I think I've already covered it, because I think for me it comes back to those underlying systems, just having that really concrete foundation so that things don't fall apart when you keep reaching those new levels.
Fantastic. And for those listeners that are like, I need to get me a piece of Trace, or they need one of those wonky owls, or one of your commission pieces, or they want to join the $27 offer, et cetera, et cetera. Where can these amazing listeners find you, Trace?
Yeah, so everything is pretty much under my name, Tracy Verdugo, so tracyverdugo.com, and then all my socials, Instagram, Facebook, etc., are under my name as well.
Yes. Well, listen, Trace, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. And I hope that you get to enjoy, that beautiful little love muffin, that baby.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of the things that we talked about was we knew baby was coming. So we strategized our offers and things that we needed to work on to make sure that you had to this downtime with Bub and your daughter, right?
Exactly.
These things, again, once we take from brain and put it to paper, these things like this can happen. So I think you've got 2 weeks or a total of 2 weeks just hanging out, being, you know what I mean, in the world of the baby bubble, I should say. Now, before we wrap up, again, I just want to reemphasize that I'm here to tell you that you do not have to have high ticket offers in order to help more people and to grow your business. Trace is a prime example of this. So I would encourage you to be thinking about what content do you already have? What could you turn into a small offer through the slow funnel? What does your audience need right now to get some transformation from you, right? And again, get their transaction, they pay you for a transaction and they see their own transformation. What does that look like for them and what do they need? And before we sign off, though, please remember that my team and I will also be putting together the show notes for this episode at angelahenderson.com.au. And as I mentioned earlier in the intro, my 12-month Action Takers Mastermind applications are now open. So if you'd like to work with your slow funnel, get your strategy mapped out and make 2021 an awesome year, make sure to apply for the mastermind by heading to angelahenderson.com.au and click on Mastermind. Thanks again, Trace, for an amazing episode. I love working with you and CC, and I can't wait to see 2021 even better than this year.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ange.
And for the rest of you, have a fabulous day no matter where you are in the world. And I look forward to you joining me again next week for another awesome episode of the Business and Life Conversations podcast. Have an awesome day. Thanks for listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast with Angela Henderson. www.angelahenderson.com.au